Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown, the unofficial sumo podcast for official sumo fans. This is Ryan,
This is Jake.
and this is our prediction for the Kyushu 2024 Banzuke. This will be my fourth prediction, I believe, as the reigning defending number one guesser on Guess the Banzuke.
Two separate title reigns, right?
Yes, this is my second title reign. The trophy stands tall. I am the best Banzuke guy. And yeah, so yeah,
it makes me laugh every time you're like, here's my trophy. Everyone
here's
look
my
at it. And
trophy.
now let me put it way back in the background.
Yeah. I don't have anywhere like in the foreground so it could
Yeah.
like sit like right here the whole time. That would be amazing. I
Yeah,
I don't
we'll
have
work on it.
anything that I could do that. Yeah.
That
Send me
sounds
a table, Jake.
I was gonna say that sounds within the realm of GSB's meager budget.
Yeah. Send me a table that has etched in it best Banzuke table or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know on that one. maybe
Fair.
maybe like one of those little like phone holder clamp things that you can kind of adjust and clamp onto your
Yeah.
desk. That'd be great.
But yeah, last Basho, I finally got my first U show and guessed the Bansuke. So hopefully I don't completely fall flat on my face in my defense of that title.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this Bansuke is not nice, and I very well might fall flat on my face in my follow up.
Face falling flatitude risk is very high.
Very high in this one. So real quick before we dive into it, if you are watching on YouTube, as always, we have the results from the Aki Basho that are shown. People with names highlighted in red got a losing record. Green had a winning record. And I think for the first time since we've had this graphic, we got a name in gray, and that is representing Takakeisho, who retired, and so he will not be anywhere on this Bansuke. And then to the right, as we go through my prediction, Jake will unveil who I have at each rank. So we will go ahead and get started. Of course, at Yokozuna, we will have Teru no Fuji, as always, alone on the east side of the Yokozuna rank. And then at the rank of Ozeki, we have Kotozakura and we have Hoshoryu. Luckily, they're going to be joined by somebody this Basho. We were only stuck with two Ozeki for one Basho. Sadly, it's not Takakeisho coming back up to reinforce the rank, but we are certainly not mad at a historic record-breaking Ozeki promotion for Ono Sato, who will be joining them on the west side. He is on the west side, of course, to balance out the fact that Teru no Fuji sits alone on the east side, so we want to get the Sanyaku ranks balanced out here. And we have Kotozakura is still your Ozeki 1 East, and Hoshoryu your Ozeki 2 or Ozeki 1 West. They had the same record the last Basho, so no flipping them around. That's the order they were in last time. And despite Ono Sato getting 5 wins more and beating both of these Rikishi in the previous Basho, as the newly promoted Ozeki, he will be the bottom ranked Ozeki.
Yep, them's the rules.
Them's the rules. Moving down to Sekiwake. So after we had 2 consecutive Basho of demoted Ozeki, increasing the number of Sekiwake, first to 3 after Kirishima was demoted, and then to 4 last Basho after Takakeisho was demoted, we will be back to having just 2 Sekiwake, as 3 of the Rikishi that were ranked Sekiwake in the last Basho will be departing the rank. Abi went 5-10 and is going to drop out of the Sanyaku ranks completely. Ono Sato won the Yusho, and as we mentioned, he has been promoted to Ozeki, and Takakeisho retired. So that just leaves Kirishima to jump up from Sekiwake 2 East to just Sekiwake East. No reason to have a 1 there. That's the only Sekiwake rank we are going to have. He had a 12-3 record, and there is no one that can come close to competing with him for the top Sekiwake rank. And Sekiwake West, luckily, is going to be a pretty straightforward pick as well. But I do want to point out that there are technically 5 Rikishi with rank and record combinations that could land them at Sekiwake if everything went their way. Unfortunately for 4 of them, everything went the way of only one of these Rikishi. So we had Komosubi Daisho, who went 8-7, Maegashira 2 Oho, who went 9-6, Maegashira 3 Wakamoto Haru, who went 11-4, Maegashira 4 Shodai, who went 10-5, and Maegashira 7 Wakataka Kage, who went 12-3. All of those guys could feasibly be ranked at Sekiwake after the last Basho. But despite everybody in that list having a better record than him, Daisho should pretty easily snag that third open or that open Sekiwake slot by virtue of him having Sanyaku bias, him having being a Komosubi with the winning record. There's an open Sekiwake slot. It should just be as simple as moving him up there.
Yeah, in order to not give an 8-7 a promotion, there have to be some stronger circumstances.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like if Oho was also a Komosubi like Daisho and he got like, 14 wins or something, he'd
Yeah.
probably leapfrog him. But
Yeah,
like
he would leapfrog him.
yeah, in this case, no, Daisho slides right in there. Everybody else totally reasonable to not have them leapfrog him.
That's right. So we'll move down to Komosubi. So with Daisho rising up to Sekiwake in my prediction, and Hiradoumi is going to be dropping out of the Komosubi ranks due to his 7-8 record, that leaves me with two open Komosubi slots to fill. First one should be fairly easy. Wakamoto Haru should snag that Komosubi East ranking due to his rank and record combination being much better than any of the other contenders. Like Wakamoto Haru deserves to be like Yokozuna 2 plus or something like that based on his rank and record
Mm,
combination. Uh,
I get where you're coming from.
yeah, you know what I mean. But there's obviously a ceiling that his 7 rank jump that he deserves. There's a ceiling that kind of caps that.
Yeah.
But if you were to be able to break through the ceiling, Wakamoto Haru would be able to break through the highest out of those 4 Rikishi that weren't able to snag the Sekiwake spot. But the second spot, unfortunately, this is where the trouble really begins on this Banzuke. We've got 3 contenders for this spot: Oho, Shodai, Wakataka Kage. So if we were to follow the math, Wakataka Kage would be the next guy to be placed. He ranks out to deserving the rank of Ozeki, while Shodai and Oho both would end up deserving the rank of Sekiwake if we just did that numerical jump up the rankings, ignoring that
Right.
ceiling between Sekiwake and Ozeki.
It's just not a way you normally phrase it, so it's making me chuckle each time you
Yeah.
phrase it that way.
Wakataka Kage deserves to be 1 rank ahead of Shodai
Yeah,
and Oho.
yeah, that sounds more like how you would normally phrase it, as opposed
Fair.
to, he should be Yokozuna after this Basho.
Very fair, understandable. I will try to avoid that phrasing
I've
in the
caught
future.
up though, like I get it now, but like for that the first time and then a little bit that second time, I'm like, what are you talking about, man? All right.
So,
anyways, though,
by the math, Wakataka Kage has the advantage, but he is also well outside of the joy at Maegashira 7, so that very well could work against him here. The next way that we would look at it, if we're eliminating Wakataka Kage due to his lower rank, which I am going to do because I do think Joy Bias is going to win here when we're filling out the open Sanyaku slots, is to look at the East-West tiebreaker. So in that case, Shodai would take the Komosubi West rank as he was previously on the East side while Oho was on the West side. But Maegashira 4 Rikishi on the fringe of the Joy, they don't always kind of get that joy bias that I see from a Maegashira 1, Maegashira 2, Maegashira 3. It's kind of, yes, Shodai is in the top 16 ranked Rikishi at Maegashira 4, but I feel like there's a more of a weight from when I've been doing these Banzukes at 1, 2, and 3 hold than a 4. You don't really see
Sure.
those 4s get as much bias as you might those other 3 ranks. So
yeah, and it just feels weird to have him leapfrog Oho, who's 2 ranks ahead of him.
if we were looking at these two as Shodai was Maegashira 12 and Oho was Maegashira 10, there'd be no question Shodai would be ahead of Oho.
Oh, really? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because they both deserve the same rank. Shodai is on the east side.
It's really just the Komosubiness of it all that is kind of
It's the joyness of it all. Yeah. That one of these guys firmly implanted in the joy. Shodai, maybe? Depends on how the Banzuke committee is feeling. I did go back so to show like how concerned I am about this Banzuke, like I do. This is my third draft of the Banzuke. I do three drafts of all my Banzuke predictions. Um, this person that I have here now is only it was only at Komusubi West in this final draft that I had. I have other positions further down the Banzuke where I have people flipping back and forth. I normally don't have that much indecision between my drafts, and then also I had to do a lot more Sumo DB queries into like what happened in this like niche
Mm,
situation
sure.
in the past. All of which is probably very unnecessary, but you know what? It's part of my process, and I'm number one, so I'm going to keep doing it.
You do have like literally the best feedback possible to tell you to keep doing it the way you're doing
Yeah.
it.
So I did go back and look at the history of Bashos where you had a Maegashira 2 that went 9-6 versus a Maegashira 4 that went 10-5. And it every instance that I was able to find within like the past 10 years, the Maegashira 2 was ranked ahead of the Maegashira 4. Um, and also, just to throw a little bit more of a wrench in that, in all of those cases, both of those Rikshi were on the same side of the Bansuke, east or
Mm.
west. So the typical tiebreaker would have gone to the Maegashira 4 because they had more wins to leap ahead of the Maegashira 2, but they went with the Maegashira 2 ahead of the Maegashira 4. So I'm going to kind of use that as weak precedence, and the fact that Oho is firmly within the Joy, Shoda is kind of fringe joy to put Oho at Komosubi West. Once again, despite having the worst record of any of the three that we're discussing for this spot. Right now, like my mantra has been follow the math. And right now we're throwing the math out the window in favor of these higher ranked guys. But we've seen those trends in the Sanyaku and in the Joy that's just kind of what happens at the top of the Bansuke. So hopefully that continues here.
I
Um,
do appreciate that context though, that like if these guys were number 10 and number 12 or something like that, that wouldn't necessarily go the same way. Cause that's,
right.
yeah, that, I don't know, interesting to think about, and definitely something that's worth keeping an eye on as a, whatever you'd call it, a piece of data for you to use in the future again.
Yep. And so, with the retirement of Takakeisho, the number of Sanyaku Rikshi is dropping from 9 Rikshi to 8. So that means our Bansuke is going to extend down to Maegashira 17 West instead of Maegashira 17 East, which we've been seeing for the past few Basho. So we are going to have one more Rikshi at the bottom of the Bansuke than we did last time. So let's move into our top Maegashira ranks into that zone of death. And unfortunately, at Maegashira 1, it's not going to be all that much easier. So I need to decide if Shodai, technically in the Joy, he was in the top 16 Rikshi on the Bansuke, but at that Maegashira 4 rank, um, is that going to be enough to keep him ahead of Wakataka Kage, who numerically deserves to be one rank ahead of Shodai? And we actually had this exact scenario about 2 years ago when the then Kiribayama went 10-5 from Maegashira 4 East, and Takayasu went 12-3 from Maegashira 7 East. And in the following Bansuke, Takayasu jumped ahead of Kiribayama in the rankings.
God, that is
Since
so weird to have that identical situation. That's
Oh, I know.
awesome.
It's fantastic.
I bet
And
you, I
as
bet whenever
long as they're
you,
consistent, which we
yeah,
all
yeah,
know, Bansuke Committee ain't.
no. But I'm just picturing the look on your face when you like do this query, and like just the light of the angels shines down on you that it's the exact rank and record.
Yeah. And it's within like 2 years, so it's recent trends,
Yeah.
although I'm led I think I've heard like there's new people that are assigned to the Bansuke committee as of like the last Bansuke, which could explain the
Oh.
weird 6 and 9 shenanigans that we had.
Hmm.
So even 2 year ago precedent might not match up with today precedent. We will see. But since both math and recent past precedent are on his side, I'm going to have Wakataka Kage jumping ahead of Shodai in the rankings to land at Maegashira 1 East. This is another rank that up until my final draft was a different person. I think my order that I had in my first two drafts was Shodai Komosubi, Oho Maegashira 1, Wakataka Kage Maegashira the next ranked guy, and now I've got it. Oho Wakataka Kage Shodai. So honestly, any three of those guys can go at any of these spots. Would not shock me in the slightest. But we get to Maegashira 1 West, you might think, okay, yeah, that's an easy spot to put Shodai into, but it's
Yeah.
unfortunately still not that simple because we have Hira do Umi dropping from the Komosubi rank after a 7-8 record. Shodai deserves to be 2 ranks ahead of him by the math, but Sanyaku bias, even through that drought of joy bias that we have seen, where you're not getting ranked ahead of these people you deserve to be 1 and 2 ranks behind when you're dropping down the Banzuke. We have seen that Sanyaku bias is giving those Rikshi the power to go ahead of Rikshi that they otherwise deserve to be 1 or 2 ranks behind. So, of course, always look to the past to see what will happen in the future. And back in November of 2022, it was a very different world. We had just come off of an Abi win, which is just
That does
uh,
still doesn't
um,
feel right.
and as befitting a Basho, where Abi won the U show. The following Bansuke was just as crazy. Part of the craziness included 4 Rikshi dropping out of the Sanyaku ranks, none of which deserved to be ranked lower than Maegashira 2. And you also had the Yusho winner himself, Abi, who deserved to be ranked Komosubi and deserved to be ranked 2 ranks ahead of, in particular here, 6-9 Komosubi Tamawashi. In the following Bansuke, instead of over demoting Tamawashi at all, because if he had dropped from Komosubi, like Maegashira 1, Maegashira 2 would all be filled if you put Abi ahead of Tamawashi, which Abi deserves to be 2 ranks ahead of him, then Tamawashi would have an over demotion while falling out of the Sanyaku ranks. But instead of doing that, they had Tamawashi still landing at Maegashira 2 and having Abi right behind him at Maegashira 3.
Hmm.
So let's take a look at our current situation once again. We have a dropping Sanyaku Rikshi that deserves to be ranked Maegashira 1 and a rising Maegashira that deserves to be 2 ranks ahead of him. So just like in the past example, I'm going to take a bit of a risk here and make sure that Hira Umi does not get any sort of over demotion as he's falling out of the Sanyaku ranks. I'm going to put him ahead of Shodai, who otherwise would deserve to go 2 ranks ahead of Hira Umi, but too bad I've got Hira Umi landing at Maegashira 1 West. Now,
Okay. I don't like it.
I
I
don't
see
either.
why this is
I
one that you switched a couple times.
I don't like anything about Komosubi West through Maegashira 2 East. Don't like any of it.
So
But
now 2 East, here's why we're not putting Shodai here either.
here's ultimately why Shodai is being demoted after 10 wins.
Yeah.
But no, luckily, once we do get to Maegashira 2 East, there's no one new that could interfere with Shodai landing at this spot. But this would be only a promotion of 2 ranks for him following a 10-5 record. But luckily, there's precedent for that. That Basho I mentioned with Kiribayama going 10-5 and being passed by Takayasu, that was
Hmm.
the first time in history that a 10-5 Maegashira 4 landed at Maegashira 2, the next Basho. I'm predicting it to happen again now 2 years later. So
Okay. I mean, it is a great precedent. Like it's hard not to give that a ton of weight.
stop saying, okay, if you're sure.
Okay, I don't know. You sure you don't want to
Yeah,
switch it
you
again?
don't know, Jake. You've never done this.
No, but I've listened to a lot of rambling about it.
That's fair. That's very fair. And it's
I
making me
appreciate you kept
uneasy every
your
time you do it, and I don't
yeah.
appreciate it.
I do appreciate that this outline is only 9 pages long this time. I
We
do my best not to read it other than like, try and have some idea of my cues for making sure that the visual is working.
Yeah.
But like I definitely do like, okay, are there any ranks that are more than a page for the same for a single
I
position?
I don't think I have like any page and a half long for a
No, not
single
this
rank
one.
this time. It was just a lot that required more than this guy was on the east side, this guy was on the west side, so he's ahead of him. There's not a lot of that on this one,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think there's no rank that I can find that has fewer than 2 bullet points, and several are up to like 6 or 7 bullet
Yeah,
points.
with
Uh,
sub bullet points and all that stuff.
yeah. Usually there's at least like, all right, from Maegashira 4 to Maegashira 9, we're just gonna rip through these that make sense. And no, it sounds like everything is just a teeny bit complicated this
We
time.
really don't get that till Maegashira 10 or 11.
Oh God.
But so
Man,
let's get there.
Yeah,
Let's
it
get
sounds
there.
like
Let's
this
get
one
to the
was a
good times.
slog. So yeah,
Let's
2 West.
let's slog through the bad times. Let's get to the good times so we can enjoy them when we get there.
Fair
So yeah,
enough.
now that we are past that log jam, the next spot should pretty easily fall to Ura. Him and Chuda Naumi are tied for deserving this rank, but Ura will have East Side bias on his side. That should be enough to land him at Maegashira 2 West following a 9-6 record from Maegashira 5. So, Maegashira 3 East could easily fall to Chuda Naumi here, who lost that tiebreaker to Ura for the previous rank. But there is the possibility of some joy bias coming into play to deny Chuda Naumi that spot. So Atami Fuji deserves to be one rank behind Chuda Naumi, but he was ranked Maegashira 2 last Basho, could receive that joy bias. So last Basho, we kind of saw the return of joy bias. We had Meisei, who was Maegashira 1, and Gonoyama, who were Maegashira 3. They ended up going ahead of lower double-digit Maegashira Wakataka Kage and Chuda Naumi, despite Chuda Naumi and Wakataka Kage deserving to be one rank ahead of Meisei and Gonoyama. And that's the first time we've seen that in quite a few Basho, where joy bias was kind of back and be like, nah, these guys had the tougher schedule than you guys, despite deserving to be ranked lower than them. We're going to put them ahead of you anyways. We saw that coming back. So are they going to do that again? I'm not going to predict it because joy bias is kind of set the trend that it's not as effective. It's not being implemented as much as it was in the past. And so I'm going to treat last Banzuke where they did that as kind of outside of the current norm. And I don't treat one Basho blips. I don't take that into account for my next prediction. I wait until it's a trend of 2 or 3 Bashos before I start implementing that back into my predictions. So because of that, I'm going to follow the math here and have Chuda Naumi take the Maegashira 3 East rank following a 10-5 record from Maegashira 7. And that means I have Atami Fuji taking the Maegashira 3 West rank after his 7-8 record from Maegashira 2. So that now leaves the Maegashira 4 East rank pretty easy to fill out as Abi dropping from Sanyaku and being on the east side. He will easily win the tiebreaker against Oshoma to fill this spot. He would be dropping 5 ranks following a 5-10 record from Sekiwake. Except it's not that easy because, as I mentioned,
Can we
joy
just put that
bias,
as the subtitle for this episode?
except it's not
Except it
that
isn't
easy.
that easy.
Yeah. I love it. So as I just mentioned, joy bias hasn't been very strong recently. Sanyaku bias has been a pretty strong factor in recent years for Rikshi with double-digit losing records dropping out of the Sanyaku. It wouldn't be shocking to me to see Abi go ahead of one or both of Chuda Naumi and Atami Fuji and could land at Maegashira 3, while Chuda Naumi gets the shaft and only rises to Maegashira 4. But I'm not going to do that for 2 reasons. One, follow the math. And 2, Abi isn't being over demoted to have Chuda Naumi go ahead of him. So I think it's more acceptable for Chuda Naumi to go ahead of Abi than it would be for Shodai to go ahead of Hira Naumi, since the Shodai move would over demote Hira Naumi.
I
But
see.
also, like a sub layer within that sub layer of my thoughts, I also had the lingering thought that they could have Shodai ahead of Hira Umi at Maegashira 1 East, like Shodai deserves to be ahead of Hira Umi, and then give Wakataka Kage the shaft by putting him at Maegashira 2, which, once again, wouldn't shock me if that's what we end up seeing. There's just a lot of different working layers of joy bias, Sanyaku bias. Is that going to work this time? Is it not going to work this time? If there's anybody confident about Komusubi West through Maegashira 4 East, they're lying. Like there's no way you can be confident about that at this point. So I am going to put Abi at Maegashira for East.
So it was that easy.
Well, it's
I know
not
what you
that
mean.
easy.
Except it's not that easy.
I don't like it, but I'm doing it. So after he is placed, that should be pretty easy for Oshoma then to slide in at Maegashira 4 West following his 10-5 record from Maegashira 9. So just to sum up, of the 9 Rikshi from Komusubi West to Maegashira 4 West, I feel comfortable with 2 spots that I have filled. Feel pretty good about Ura at Maegashira 2 West, and I feel pretty good about Oshoma at Maegashira 4 West.
Well,
That's it.
If you're sure.
I'm not.
Okay.
Stop
All
it.
right.
Stop it.
And we're
let's
already more than halfway through the outline.
yep.
And we've only gotten to the joy.
So hey, it gets easier from here.
That's wild. I
Yeah.
think it's usually the other way around, I think. I feel like you almost always have the full Sanyaku, just no big deal, lockdown. Even when there's extra ranks and stuff, it's like, yeah, there's enough precedent. We know what's going on here. A little bit of waffling here and there in the joy. And then for some reason, like 6 West has like a page and a half on like, the all the different precedents and weird stuff that could happen there. But yeah, this one's weird that there's a lot more front loading of the difficulty than I've seen recently, I think.
Yeah, and that's because like for any Banzuke, the hard spot is going to be where there's too many Rikshi to fit in these
Yeah,
numerical ranks. And so it just happened that that occurred at the top of the Banzuke this time, where typically you're going to have the strong Sanyaku ranks to beat the crap out of your Maegashira 1
right.
through 3, send them all down, and then we got a new crop that'll just fill in those top Maegashira 1 through 3 ranks. So there's not a whole lot of turnover in the Sanyaku ranks. This time we had a few good records in the Joy or just
Right.
right outside of the Joy. And we do have those dropping guys out of Sanyaku. So that's creating that log jam at the top this time that we haven't been seeing recently because we have had a pretty strong Sanyaku recently to knock down those Maegashira 1 through 3.
Yep. Other than Onosato and Kirishima, nobody did all that well,
Yeah.
Komasubi or higher. So
Even
like,
our Ozeki only went 8 and 7.
yeah,
So,
they both went 8 and 7. So like, yeah, that's giving up a lot of wins to those upper Maegashira who normally do terribly.
yep.
Um, yeah, interesting.
So let's move on to Maegashira 5. The next Rikshi that deserves to be ranked is Koto Shoho. He's the only Rikshi that deserves to be ranked Maegashira 5. So unless the Banzuke committee decides to give Tobizaru joy bias, as he is dropping from Maegashira 1 through 5 to apologize. He's dropping from Maegashira 1 after a 5 and 10 record. He deserves to be one rank behind Koto Shoho. So unless they want to give him joy bias to pop him ahead of Koto Shoho should land at Maegashira 5 East after a 7 and 8 record. And as I mentioned, I'm going to ignore the joy bias from last Basho until I see it in a couple consecutive Bashos. So
Yeah, fair
then at
enough.
Maegashira 5 West, we've quickly moved from a log jam, which we were seeing very clearly before, and having under promotions and over demotions. And now we have a deficit just that quickly that we need to fill, and we have to over promote somebody or under demote somebody. Luckily, it on this Banzuke, the over promotions and under demotions never get too bad, and it's going to fix itself in just a matter of a couple of ranks. So Tobizaru should have joy bias on his side to take this spot in lieu of Nishikigi, who also deserves to be ranked Maegashira 6 and would win the tiebreaker if Tobizaru wasn't in the joy based on the number of wins that he have. But I do have joy bias having a stronger sway than the number of wins in my tiebreaker rankings. So I've got Tobizaru landing at Maegashira 5 West following his 5 and 10 record. Then Maegashira 6, Nishikigi, the only Rikshi that deserves the rank of Maegashira 6. So I have him taking the Maegashira 6 East ranking, following an 11 and 4 record from Maegashira 13. And then Maegashira 6 West, this is one that I've flip flopped from draft to draft to draft. Um, by the math, Endo deserves to take this spot, but lingering right behind him is Takanosho, who went 4 and 11 for Maegashira 1 and deserves to be just one rank behind Endo. And I know I've been hammering this. I'm not considering joy bias, and I'm not. I have Endo landing at Maegashira 6 West here. But for me, this is the exact spot last Basho where we saw the two lower ranked Rikshi, Wakataka Kage and Chura no Umi, that deserve to be Maegashira 7 get overlooked in favor of two Joy Rikshi that deserve to be Maegashira 8, which is the exact scenario that we have with Endo, who deserves to
Yeah.
be ranked Maegashira 7, versus Takanosho, who deserves to be ranked Maegashira 8. I'm not going to do it this time. I could easily see Takanosho hopping ahead of Endo. I had that happening in one of my drafts, but I pulled back from that, and I'm going to leave Endo here at Maegashira 6 West. Then at Maegashira 7 East, there is no Rikshi that deserves to be Maegashira 7 at this point, so need to look to the pool of Rikshi that deserve to be Maegashira 8, and it's a lonely pool. It's only Takanosho. So got him landing at Maegashira 7 East. And then we've created a little bit of a hole that we've got to dig our way out of now, as now we have to look to the pool of Rikshi that deserves to be Maegashira 9 to fill the Maegashira 7 rank. Luckily, the rankings worked out so that we're going to climb out of this shallow hole pretty quickly here. So there are 3 Rikshi that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 9. Gonoyama, who went 6 and 9 from Maegashira 6, Midori Fuji, who went 7 and 8 from Maegashira 8, and Roga, who went 8 and 7 from Maegashira 10. We can eliminate Midori Fuji, as we're not going to give him a promotion following a losing record.
I don't
And
know,
then,
man. You used to think that 6 and 9 was always a demotion.
oh God, you're right. If you can keep a 6 and 9 Rikshi at the same spot on a Banzuke,
A 7 and 8
who's to
Rikshi should do even better.
yeah, 7 and 8 could get a promotion. You're right. I didn't consider that, Jake.
That's why
I,
you keep me around.
I, we gotta stop the podcast. I've got to go back and recalculate everything.
I got to make at least 3 more drafts.
Yeah. No, I've already submitted to guess the Banzuke. We got to lock in with this farce of a Banzuke prediction. Then we just got to keep powering through.
I suppose if you're sure.
So if we're not considering a promotion for the losing record Midori Fuji, then the tiebreakers would go in Roga's favor as he had more wins than Gonoyama. So I have Roga rising 3 ranks to take the Maegashira 7 West ranking. At Maegashira 8 East, Midori Fuji is still ineligible for this rank. He went 7 and 8 from Maegashira 8 West, so they're not going to slide him over to Maegashira 8 East. So Gonoyama should easily land at Maegashira 8 East, dropping 2 ranks after his 6 and 9 record. And then at Maegashira 8 West, we have a choice. Do we leave Midori Fuji at his previous rank following a 7 and 8 record because no one left deserves to be ranked higher than him? Or do we take a Rikshi that deserves to be 1 rank lower than him and put him ahead of Midori Fuji to make sure that our 7 and 8 Rikshi gets some sort of demotion? So if it was all non-Joy Rikshi that were sitting behind Midori Fuji, I might consider keeping him here more than I am. But since one of the Rikshi in contention for this spot is Maegashira 3 Mitakayumi, I'm going to go ahead and give Mitakayumi some joy bias and have Mitakayumi drop 5 ranks to Maegashira 8 West following a 4 and 11 record, just to make sure that Midori Fuji is getting some sort of demotion following his 7 and 8 record. He could easily end up behind Midori Fuji here, or he could just as easily end up at like Maegashira 7 ahead of all 3 of these guys that he deserves to be 1 rank behind.
Of course.
We'll see what happens. But luckily, Mitakayumi is our final Rikshi that was dropping out of the Joy or the Sanyaku ranks. So now we just have a couple of ranks of pure tiebreakers before we have to start worrying about the Juryo Rikshi and the anti-Juryo bias that we have at the bottom of the Banzuke. Maegashira 9 through like Maegashira 13 is always the best spot on the Banzuke.
Just your little happy place where
just
it's
a little
nothing but
place.
numbers.
Nothing but the numbers. And you know what? I think my previous predictions have shown we've been nailing those when it's just the simple
Yeah.
numbers. So, and
when it comes
everybody
to-
else has too. But
Yeah. You're perfect on stuff that's just math,
yeah,
and you're pretty good at just harnessing the chaos.
yeah. I'd say honestly, if we're going to talk about, I think one of my bigger strengths is the bottom of the Banzuke compared to other predictors. And I probably my weakest spot is like the log jams in the Joy and
Sure.
the lower Sanyaku ranks. So that's why I'm pretty nervous about this one, is because we have a big issue up there and what is probably my weakest spot for predictions, I feel like.
Sure. You know what would be cool? I wonder if this data could be exported, or if we have to like get in touch with the Guess the Banzuke people directly or something. But I would love to know people's accuracy at guessing certain ranks. Because like we could probably figure out yours manually for a few or something like that. But if we wanted to like compare that to the average, like Maegashira 9 West or something like, or we're on 9 East. So like
What percentage chance do I have of nailing that one based on my previous predictions?
Right. What is your accuracy rate at nailing that one, and what is also the general accuracy of that one?
Oh God,
So
I
like,
would love that.
oh God, yeah. I could see that being a massive data rabbit hole that eats up an entire day of mine.
Well, maybe we can find a way to make that happen, because I would actually love that. That sounds
Yeah, right.
as a data nerd, I would absolutely love it. And then I know where to focus on to fill in my weak spots.
Exactly.
I feel like it's the upper Joy, but is it really?
I would be worried that it would just completely be
Random.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like it just reinforces, oh, well, yeah, I already knew I was bad at that part.
Yeah. But you know what? When you got the data to back it up, it still feels good, even
It's
when
that
it
much
matches your
sweeter.
predictions. Yeah. So let's talk about Maegashira 9. After we made sure that Midori Fuji got at least some bump down the Banzuke, there's no reason to put anybody else ahead of him at this point. So I've got Midori Fuji taking that Maegashira 9 East ranking. And then we now have three Rikishi that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 10 that are all vying for the final single digit Maegashira spot. We have Ichi Yamamoto, who went 7 and 8 for Maegashira 9 East, Takayasu, who went 10 and 5 for Maegashira 15 East, and Takada Fuji, who went 10 and 5 for Maegashira 15 West. Takada Fuji is immediately eliminated because he was the only Rikishi on the west side of these three. And the most wins tiebreaker would go to Takayasu. So I have him rising 6 ranks to take the Maegashira 9 West ranking. Here we are, just a world of perfect
Mm,
tie-breaking scenarios. There's no
mm.
bias. There's no anti-Jurio bias. It's just the math, and we love it.
Oh, so pure.
So we're actually going to rocket through these next 3 ranks pretty easily.
Hooray.
Maegashira 10
An easy
East.
spot.
Yeah. Ichi Yamamoto is next in line based on east side bias that he has over Takada Fuji. So I have him dropping 1 rank to land at Maegashira 10 East, which means Takada Fuji will be rising 5 ranks to take the Maegashira 10 West spot. At Maegashira 11, this is this rank is this one and Maegashira 12 are the most beautiful and the most pure ranks on the Sponske.
Excellent.
Each one has 2 Rikishi that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 11 or Maegashira 12. And there's
Mm-hmm.
only 2 Rikishi that deserve those ranks.
Oh, keep
It,
going.
it's perfect and pure. All we have to do is just the simple east-west tiebreakers, the simple who had more wins. So Maegashira 11, it was either Tamawashi or Meisei. Both were on the east side, but Tamawashi had 7 wins compared to Meisei's 5. That means I have Tamawashi landing at Maegashira 11 East, following a 7 and 8 record for Maegashira 10, and Meisei dropping 5 ranks to Maegashira 11 West, following his 5 and 10 record from Maegashira 6. And
Love
at
it.
Maegashira 12, same thing. 2 Rikishi that deserve the rank of Maegashira 12. Hokuto Fuji, Sada no Umi. There's no These are the 2 guys that are going to be here in this spot. There's nobody else who can or should be here. It's so easy. It's so simple. It's so pure. Once again, both on the east side. So we're going to look at the number of wins. Hokuto Fuji had 8 wins. Sada no Umi had 7. That means I have Hokuto Fuji rising 1 rank after an 8-7 record to take the Maegashira 12 East ranking. And I have Sada no Umi dropping 1 rank after a 7 and 8 record to take the Maegashira 12 West ranking.
Oh, that was
And
pretty.
as quick as it came, our bliss is gone. Well, this rank it's not particularly difficult. It just isn't as perfect as the
Yeah,
2 ranks preceding it.
those are so clean.
They were. Why can't all the Banzuke look like that?
We're
There's
going straight from like hospital operation room to like bus stop floor kind of dirty again, I'm guessing.
yeah. So there are 2 Rikishi that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 13, but one is a Juryo Rikishi, and we still have two Maku.
Ah,
Yeah.
yep.
We still have 2 Makuuchi Rikishi with winning records that we have yet to place. And we're going to place one of those 2 here, as I have Ryuden rising 1 rank to Maegashira 13 East following an 8 and 7 record. And then, if we haven't unlocked Juryo Rikishi yet, so we can't place the other guy that deserves to be Maegashira 13, then we have to look to the Rikishi that deserves to be Maegashira 14, of which there is one that is Shona no Umi. So I will have him landing at Maegashira 13 West following a 3 and 12 record from Maegashira 5. I forgot how poorly Shona no Umi did last Basho.
Real bad.
Yeah, so he's getting a 8 rank drop here out of an expected 9. So that's not an issue at all that he's getting a little under demotion there.
Mm-hmm.
So then at Maegashira 14, I mentioned that rule of not placing any Juryo Rikishi until the final Makuuchi Rikishi with a winning record has been ranked. And that is typically a very strong rule. The only exceptions that I have found to that over the past 5 years is when the top ranked Juryo Rikishi has 10 plus wins and the bottom ranked Makuuchi Rikishi only has 8 wins. But that kind of scenario doesn't happen very often.
Mm-hmm.
But it did happen in September. We had Chiyoshoma Juryo 1 East with 10 wins. We had Nishiki Fuji, Maegashira 17 East, which was the lowest rank back in September. He only had 8 wins. So, because of that, I'm going to forego placing the final Makuuchi Rikshi with a winning record, and I am instead going to place Juryo Rikshi Chiyoshoma. So Chiyoshima deserves to be 3 ranks higher than Nishiki Fuji. And honestly, he could have gone at Maegashira 13 West if we were going to ignore the final Makuuchi Rikshi having a winning record being placed rule. But in my mind, a Maegashira 5 Rikshi that only deserved to be ranked 1 spot below Chiyoshima, I feel like that could still block the first Juryo Rikshi from being placed on the Banzuke. I
Sure.
could I could see them flipping those two. Wouldn't shock me. But I feel pretty comfortable with Chiyoshima ahead of Nishiki Fuji here.
Yeah,
The
if you put him ahead, you do still have to keep him in his place as a Juryo Rikshi
Of
coming up.
course,
You got to do something mean to him. So yeah,
can't let
putting
him
him
get
behind
too big of a
Shonanumi
head.
makes sense.
Yeah. And then at Maegashira, let's see where we at. Maegashira 14 West. We need to look to Rikshi that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 15 to fill this spot. And there is only one. It is Onokatsu, and he went 7-8 from this rank we are trying to fill. So similar to Midori Fuji earlier on the Banzuke, we need to decide, do we want to keep Onokatsu here or use someone that deserves to be 1 rank lower than him to bump him down? In this case, we don't have any dropping Joy Rikshi to consider that we're like 1 rank behind him. So maybe we'll use a little bit of Joy bias to push him down. So I'm going to leave Onokatsu at his previous rank of Maegashira 14 West. And in fact, the 2 Rikshi that are at Maegashira 16 that could take his spot, they're both Juryo Rikshi. And so I'm not going to take a Juryo Rikshi ahead of a 7-8 Rikshi, even if that deserves to be 1 rank ahead of them, even if it means keeping him at his previous rank. In fact, we've had to do something similar on, I think, each of the past 2 Bonds-Ks.
Oh, really?
Yes. Let's take a quick look because so we had,
While you're doing that, I
yeah,
think it's kind of funny with the way the Sanyaku changed between last Basho to this one. Onokatsu's technically getting a promotion if he stays put because there were previously 5 guys behind him on the list. And if he stays put, there will be 6 guys behind him on the list, even if his number rank is the same as it was. So,
yeah,
kind of a promotion. Not really,
yeah.
but just thought it was funny. I think it's funny when that happens due to it's always due to the Sanyaku changing size. Extra Ozeki, extra Sekiwake, etc. Changing the size of the division. Well, keeping the division the same size, but changing what the last rank is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry. You get it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I hadn't considered that with Onokatsu, but I feel like years in the past we had a similar situation, and we saw that, like, yeah, 7 and 8 Rikshi, they stayed put, even though technically
Mhm.
there's they're ranked ahead of one more Rikshi than they were in the previous
They
Basho.
don't really take that into account as far as we've
Yeah,
seen. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And unless the difference, there's like a huge swing in the number of Sanyaku Rikshi, like the one past precedent that we've looked at of like an 8 and 7 keeping their same rank after a Basho was like Yutakayama at like Maegashira 9, but the difference was you had 3 Rikshi dropping out of the Sanyaku ranks, so he
Yeah.
was still ranked ahead of 3 other Rikshi on the next Banzuke.
Yep.
So I did find, not last Basho, we didn't have a 7 and 8 at the bottom staying put, but in Nagoya of 2024, we had Roga, who went 7 and 8 from Maegashira 15 West. And the only people that deserve to be, and he stayed put. They're like, nobody that deserved to be ranked below him pushed him down. And then the same thing in Natsu of this year. You had Chura no Umi and once again Roga at Maegashira 15
Oh,
West. He held that rank for 3 consecutive Basho.
that's right.
Neither of them were pushed down at all in similar situations. So I feel pretty comfortable here with Onokatsu staying put at Maegashira 14 West.
Sure.
So then at Maegashira 15, take a look at the Rikshi that deserve to be Maegashira 16, which is Nishiki Fuji, and to Juryo Rikshi. So I'm going to have the sole Makuuchi Rikshi every time in that scenario. So Nishiki Fuji rising 2 ranks following an 8-7 record from Maegashira 15 to land at Maegashira, from Maegashira 17 to land at Maegashira 15 East. And then the next 4 Rikshi that deserve to be ranked are all Juryo Rikshi. And these next two were both in the Juryo Joy. So there should be no issues with them being the next 2 Rikshi off the board. There's no like, well, there's a Makuuchi Rikshi like 1 rank behind them. Are they going to go ahead of him? Nothing like that. These guys should easily be the next 2 placed. That means I have Toki Hayate rising 4 ranks to fill the Maegashira 15 East rank and returning to the top division after I think he was just down there for one basho after he made
I
his
think so.
top division debut back in July. And he went 9-6 from Juryo 2. And then at Maegashira 16 East, I have Shishi making his Makuuchi debut.
Ooh, it's about
Um,
time.
Following his own 9-6 record from Juryo 2. And then for the second basho in a row, the promotion demotion scene gets incredibly muddy. So the next 2 Rikshi that deserve to be ranked are both Juryo Rikshi, but they're coming from deep Juryo. We're
Okay.
talking Juryo 8 and Juryo 11.
Ah,
We have seen a lot in the past, including just last Basho, that Rikshi coming from Deep Juryo need to deserve to be ranked way higher than Makuuchi Rikshi in order to go ahead of them. The last 3 instances of Rikshi ranked Juryo 8 or lower to be promoted to the top division, this is Shido Kuma, Takeru Fuji, and Haku Oho, all included them being ranked behind Rikshi that deserved to be 2 ranks below them, if not more. So our current situation involves Takeru Fuji, who was Juryo 11, now deserving to be ranked Maegashira 17. And we have Asa Koryu, who was Juryo 8, now deserving to be ranked Juryo 1. And then we have 3 Makuuchi Rikshi that deserve to be ranked Juryo 2. That's Bushozan, Kinbozan, and Kita Nowaka. So based on that, we could just keep all 3 of the Makuuchi Rikshi, as unseemly as it would be to keep a Rikshi with a 6-9 record like Kita Nowaka at Maegashira 16 to keep him in the top division. We did that with Nishiki Fuji last Basho at Maegashira 17.
that was a fake laugh.
It was. You're right. Good catch. Um, and also as unseemly as it would be to keep Bushozan and Kinbozan, who both had 4-11 records for Maegashira 12, it's incredibly likely that all 3 could stay here because of anti-Juryo bias here. But I'm not going to go quite that far. And it's mostly because I really want Takeru Fuji in the top division
I
next
knew you were going
Basho.
to say that.
Yeah. So I'm going to make sure that he makes it in my prediction, but I'm going to make him the last Rikshi on my Banzuke, just like he was the first time he was promoted up to the top division in March. So, Jake, you can go ahead and uncover Maegashira 17 West. I've got that as Takeru Fuji. So that leaves me with
Totally
this.
analytical there. I love it.
Yep. So that leaves me with deciding which 2 Makuuchi Rikshi to keep that will go ahead of Takeru Fuji. Because in my mind, Asa Koryu, he went 11-4 from Juryo 8. He deserves to be ranked Juryo 1. That's 1 rank ahead of Bushozan, Kinbozan, Kita Nowaka. I don't think that's going to be enough for him to go ahead of any of those Rikshi. So I think Asa Koryu is going to be unlucky here and just miss out on making his top division debut. And Takeru Fuji, same thing could happen with him. I'm just biased towards Takeru Fuji, and so I'm not predicting that to happen. So at Maegashira 16 West, of the 3 Rikshi that I mentioned, only Bushozan was previously on the east side, so I have him dropping 4 ranks to Maegashira 16 West after his 4-11 record for Maegashira 12. And then at Maegashira 17 East, it comes down to either Kinbozan or Kita Nowaka. Both were on the west side, so I'm just going to go by the math, and I have to give it to the Rikshi with more wins, which is Kita Nowaka, who had 6 wins. So I have Kita Nowaka dropping just 1 rank from Maegashira 16 to Maegashira 17 East. And as I mentioned before, feel a lot better doing that after what they did with Nishiki Fuji last Basho. You are muted. What a professional we have here.
Hey, I muted so that I could take a drink without making any noise. But I was gonna say I don't like it. That's not you. You don't pick with your heart. You pick with your head. This
I
is
had I
this is the spot I think that's gonna hurt you.
I don't know. I feel pretty good. They got to bring Takeru Fuji up. Come on.
Do
Yeah,
they?
looking at it,
Why?
if
Just
if
because
it
you want
wasn't
it?
Takeru Fuji, like if it wasn't Takeru Fuji, if it
Hmm.
was like
I don't know. Pick somebody you never heard of down in
if it was
Jurio.
like Toha Kuryu, who went 13-2 from Juryo 11, and he didn't deserve to be ranked more than like 3 ranks ahead of any other Makuuchi Rikshi, I very easily might have said, tough shit. These other Makuuchi Rikshi are
Yeah,
going to make it ahead of
exactly.
you. Um,
I
we'll
get it.
see. We'll
Takeru
see.
Fuji is a Yusho winner. That's but that doesn't necessarily mean anything other than that you like him more.
No, I know. I know. It's just a little feeling that I have that he should make it. It
Yeah,
just feels right. As wrong as the bottom of my Banzuke already feels, it would feel more wrong to me if Takeru Fuji wasn't there. And that's
do
not
it.
just like from a personal standpoint. Like I just feel like he's going to be there. I could be very wrong on that. I could be wrong. They might bring up Asakoryu and kick Kita Nowaka to the curb and keep just Bushos on. Um,
Hmm.
they could go nuts. They could say nope. All three. They could like swing completely in the opposite direction after the last Basho. And I'm sure there was controversy of keeping Nishiki Fuji after a 6-9 record. So they could overcorrect, say no. All three of those guys have records that would place them in Juryo. We're going to send all three. Not only are we bringing up Takeru Fuji, not only are we bringing up Asakoryu, hell, we're going to bring up Haku Oho as well, who only deserves a rank of Juryo 4, but we're sending a goddamn message. I don't think that last
Yeah.
one is going to happen. But there's a lot of variability with the bottom
Hmm.
of the Makuuchi Basho or Makuuchi Banzuke, this Basho. There's very few people are going to have the same predictions on who is going to be placed where
Sure.
in this section. So this
I'm
is
gonna
my
say the
take on
thing
it.
one more time. Gonna say the thing one more time here, though. If you say so,
I do say so.
if you're
Damn
comfortable
it.
with that, I guess. Okay.
I'm not comfortable, but I do say so.
All
So
right, I said my piece.
we have brought up 4 Rikshi from Juryo to help fill out our Banzuke. That means we have to send 4 down to Juryo, is what I would say if we didn't have Takakeisho retiring, opening up a free slot in the top division. So we only have to bring up 3, or we only have to send down 3 Rikshi down to Juryo for Makuuchi. Those being Hagayaki, Keen Bozan, and Shido Kuma. Keen Bozan, kind of on the fence. Technically, I feel like he might get lucky. But Kagayaki, he went 3-12 for Maegashira 11. Shido Kuma went 4-11 for Maegashira 16. Those guys are locks to go down, I feel like. So, Jake, going through this Banzuke, what part interests you the most in how it's going to play out?
I'm torn between the Komusubi through Maegashira 2 area
Mhm.
and the promotions, but I think the promotions from Jurio are the thing that's got to take it for me. Nothing to add since we just talked about it, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think that it feels weird to split up Bushozan and Kinbozan, who were at the same rank and same record, and now having them 2 ranks apart feels kind of strange.
it
But I mean,
happens.
like usual, your arguments make sense. I just
Except for the Takeru Fuji one, which was a
except for
lot
that
more
one.
heart than
Um,
anything. It's also
your arguments
here's
make
also what
sense, but
happened
I
with that one,
disagree with.
Jake.
Yeah.
Um, so I hadn't really thought of it with that degree of in-depthness that I went to in this episode until my third draft.
Okay.
And then also that's me writing up everything that I've already written because I write it from Yokozuna down when I'm writing all this up. So I've already put all my other thoughts into anything. And then I get to diving a little deeper on our bottom of the bonds case situation. and I'm tired at this point. I don't want to make any changes and have to like re-justify things. And so like honestly, there's sometimes where I get to the bottom, is like, and I'll throw it in the episodes like, yeah, I could have done this, but I just didn't do it. It's because like I just thought of it, but it was at the end and I didn't want to go through and make a whole bunch of changes to fix it.
So did you say like on your first draft, yeah, screw it, Takeru Fuji, let's have him back, and then you go
Yeah.
through your second and third draft and
Yeah, like my first draft is just like no thought, just look at the numbers, who should go where.
yeah,
And Takeru Fuji deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of those other guys. So yeah, no thought, put him there. My second draft, a little bit more thought, kind of like I'm trying to think of like Juryo bias or anti-Juryo bias, Sanyaku bias, Joy bias, and all that. I'll mix some stuff around, and it kind
yeah.
of made it through that filter. And it wasn't till I made it to the very end of writing out, as you mentioned, 9-page documents where I found this possible discrepancy of the rules that I typically like to follow. And I'm just tired. And so I'm like, nah, we're just going to stick with what we got. Say F it.
Yep, there you go.
Screw it. We
Fix it
ball.
post.
Yeah. So yeah, and Jake, those 2 points that you identified, obviously those are the sticking points for everybody in this Banzuke
Yep.
competition. It's going to come down to who got Komosubi West through like Maegashira 4 East correct, and who got the like Maegashira 14 down correct.
Yeah.
That's what's going to determine who won guessed the Banzuke. That middle portion there should be fairly similar. There's probably not going to be a whole lot of deviation in guesses. It's those top 2 spots that we just talked about.
Yep.
Um,
It is cool to see more drama than normal in the Jurio promotions.
mm,
Because yeah, that's something you usually only get like, I don't know, 2 data points per Banzuke, but this time having 4. I feel like you probably got the number right. Or
the number of
I
promotees,
yeah,
maybe there could be
maybe,
5,
but I
could be
feel
5,
like
could be
probably.
3.
But it's more than normal. So
Yeah.
that's going to be interesting to take a look at.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that is going to wrap up this Banzuke prediction. In case people didn't see it, we have a new episode that dropped last week. We had an off-season news report, something we haven't really dove into in the past. So check that out if you just kind of want a bit of a digest of all the different sumo happenings that happen after the conclusion of the Aki Basho. That is something that we're gonna continue to do between every Basho. So we'll have a new kind of main episode that we do between every Basho with that news coverage. So check that out if you haven't already. We got the results of the popularity poll. We got over 1,050 responses in our
Nice.
popularity poll. So thank you so much to everybody that helped get us some data for that, who filled out that survey. We very much appreciate it. I know we promised that we'd get it out before the Kyushu Basho, and I am going to try my best to do it. I am traveling for work next week unexpectedly, and so that kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in things. But my current plan is I'm going to bring my personal laptop when I'm at the hotel at nights. I'm going to work on
You
compiling the
you
data.
don't have to defend yourself. Just do what you can do.
No,
I
damn it,
I think
we
it's
made a promise, and I want to stick to the promise. Damn it.
hey, yeah, and I think the other thing that's kind of makes me laugh about it is you're so intent on making it like a quiz show that you like insist on doing this one all yourself.
Fair. But and this, it's more than just the quiz show. It's just I have the like 7 or 8 tabs that I always fill out on the spreadsheet for this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the data all the other ways. Like I know what I'm doing. I just want to keep doing that.
There's
And
three other sets of
I
hands.
like doing it.
There's
I
three
like
other
doing
sets
it.
of hands, is all I'm saying.
All right, are you gonna do it?
If you'll let me.
Maybe we'll talk. We'll
No,
talk.
end of the year is always crammed, especially for pro sumo stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, we got our popularity poll, and then in December we'll also have like our end of the year pro sumo award show and everything.
Yep.
Just barrels of fun coming up.
Absolutely. I had another trading card unboxing that was
Oh
released
yeah.
last week as well. Went back in the time machine and opened a set of cards from 2020. It was their series 2. It was based off of the July Banzuke. So that's the first Basho from after the canceled Basho that was in
Oh
May.
yeah.
So we got a set of cards that we opened up based on that Banzuke. So if you want to check that out, that's over on YouTube. But until then, the next thing that we got looking forward to is the Bansuke is going to be releasing on Sunday, October 27th. We will have our Bansuke review in the days shortly after that. And then right after that is going to be Basho time starting on Sunday, November 10th. The week prior to that, we will have our preview as always. So until then, throw your salt high, keep moving forward.